Call Chris Peterson at Washington. They'll do a home and home with you, but you're going to have to go to Seattle, and you don't like leaving the South. You don't like going on the road. Because in year 4, Nick Saban lost 3 games at Alabama. And he said, I'm not going on the road anymore. And he started messing around with the schedule. Pete Carroll at USC didn't duck anybody. Pete Carroll would go to Virginia Tech and not get a home game back. Pete Carroll would go to Ohio State. Pete Carroll would go anywhere, anytime. He went to Auburn. He went to Arkansas. He went to Virginia Tech. Pete Carroll went anywhere. He wasn't afraid of anybody with USC's talent. He went to Virginia Tech one year with a great team. And I don't think they ever came back out to L.A. Because Pete Carroll knew in Los Angeles, people aren't going to tolerate Utah State. They want to be entertained. And Alabama fans are like, we're tired of eating crap. They want to go to Wisconsin and see Wisconsin come. And don't tell me the SEC is just too tough. Oh, give me a break. If it's too tough, why do you win it every year on a cakewalk? Georgia's good. Everybody else in that conference underachieves the last decade. Lord. I mean, next year, Alabama's 3 out of conference games are Georgia State, Kent State, and UT Martin. And then they play USC, but they won't play USC on the road. Well, let's go to Dallas and play them, which, you know, you have like 80% of the crowd because people in L.A. are too busy Botoxing. Okay, I'm done ranting. I'm done now. But don't tell me you don't listen. A day after I ran, and that's nothing against Nick. I like Nick. But the reason people aren't going to your games is because you play garbage. You can't keep hiking the prices up.
Sometimes you just got to hear the truth, Colin.
Yeah. Dang it. All right, Greg Cosell, almost 3 or 4 decades, 4, you're right in between, 3.5 decades at NFL Films. We bring him in to Los Angeles a couple times a year. Greg, get up here. I went unhinged there for a couple minutes.
Okay with me.
I was a little unhinged for a couple minutes. But this is why, listen, the reality is in anything, if you double the ticket prices for movies and the movies stunk half the time, you wouldn't go to the movies, right?
You're right.
If a restaurant doubled their prices and about every other time you went to a restaurant, you're like, this food's not very good, you wouldn't go to the restaurant.
So do you think the SEC isn't as good as people say?
No, I think the SEC's fine, but I'm tired of hearing it's so hard to win games here. It's hard to go 11-0 in the Mountain West Conference. It's hard to win games. It's a bunch of 18-year-old kids.
Yeah.
They have finals and girlfriends, and they're transferring now, and they leave early for the.
Well, you did mention Utah State.
But we'll get to that in a second.
We're going to get to that.
There's an interesting player at Utah State.
Yes, there is.
Okay, Greg, you look at film objectively. And so we talked about, you were one of the first people who said, I like Aaron Rodgers, but he ad-libs out of too many well-conceived plays. So knowing what Matt LaFleur did for a year in Tennessee and knowing Aaron Rodgers, how does that thing reconcile? How does it work, do you think?
It's going to be fascinating because LaFleur's background, as you know, Colin, is Kyle Shanahan. It's Sean McVay. Last year, toward the end of the year in Tennessee, he basically put Mariota under center, ran the ball with Derrick Henry. His offense starts with the quarterback under center, with the play-action pass game, and it's all built on structure. Look what Kyle Shanahan did with Nick Mullins. Nick Mullins became a somewhat efficient quarterback because that kind of offense defines the reads and the throws for the quarterback. The quarterback has to play within the structure of the offense. That's why coaches work 18 hours a day. That's why they do that. So it's going to be very interesting with Aaron Rodgers, who, of course, already said, hey, you're going to take away my ability to do a lot of things, but we'll see how that works out. I'm curious to see. I'm not real optimistic about that.
You're not?
No, I'm not. I think Aaron Rodgers has spent much of his recent career playing too much outside of structure. When you watch tape, okay, this is not, by the way, an interpretation. This is a mathematical equation here. This is like saying 2 and 2 is 4. When you watch tape of Aaron Rodgers, there's a ton of times where the design of the route concept presented the throw within the timing and structure, and he did not throw the ball. Now, we know he's great in other areas. We know he can make things happen outside of structure. We know he's got a great arm. But at the end of the day, you have to play in the NFL within the structure of the offense to be really, really good all the time. Yeah. And I'm anxious to see how that works.
Coaching obviously matters. The knock, Mike McCarthy was not creative enough, not enough motion, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But sometimes I could argue we may give the coach too much credit. I like Sean McVay a lot, But when I watch Jared Goff, I see a tall, coachable, solid throwing, accurate, precise thrower of the football who throws a feathery ball down the field. I love McVay, but I think we are overlooking what I see as a more talented Matt Ryan and Jared Goff.
I think Jared Goff's a very smooth thrower. You know, you walk a very fine line because ultimately coaches are supposed to do a good job in defining the reads and the throws, Colin. That's their job. Sean McVay did an excellent job with that, basically until the Super Bowl when Bill Belichick gave him some looks and you know, he's a young coach and he even admitted he wasn't ready to respond to that. But Goff is a somewhat programmed quarterback. Now, that in and of itself is not a negative statement.
Some would say that about Brady.
Correct. I mean, if you talk to coaches or you just talk to people and say, you know, system quarterback, a lot of people think that's a negative term. For a coach, that's a positive term because they have a system and they want it executed. Jared Goff executed Sean McVay's system at a very high level. He's done that now for 2 years in a row. And, you know, Goff he's very programmed. They're under center more than any team in the league.
Oh, they are.
More than any team in the league by far. They're under center. Not much shotgun at all. Everything is built off the outside zone run action game, which limits pass rush by the front four, and it also impacts second-level players. So the reads become very defined and clear for a quarterback. Goff is not real good when it's not clear and defined, but Sean McVay does a great job with that. That's why I use the word program. That's what Goff is. He's programmed, but very, very efficient.
By the way, Drew Brees is more programmed. Tom Brady is more
Nothing wrong with that.
Jared Goff, Joe Montana. Here's talented guys that weren't. Marino, no Super Bowls.
Yep.
Favre and Rodgers combined, too. We buy into this. I love my talent. Peyton Manning, to some degree, had a system that he had created and played within the structure of Peyton's own system. I think we freak out if we're so caught up in arm strength and listen, the reality is...
And outside of structure now. That's become the new thing, these guys who can run around and make plays. And yes, are there times that does become important because defenses have become so detailed and so nuanced, particularly on third down, where the blitz packages have increased tenfold in the league. So, yes, are there times the quarterback does have to be able to make a play? No question.
Okay, so this is where you and I have differed a little. Russell Wilson, who I think is his intuition is remarkable.
I would agree.
But he needs, because of his hyper-athleticism, he needs to be allowed, and his size, his stature. So with Russell, I see some Steve Young, which is you'd be defusing some of his talent if you didn't allow him to just kind of make it up. On film, is Russell confounding to you sometimes?
I think what most interested me about Seattle last year, and I'd love to hear your take on this, is they brought in Brian Schottenheimer, and obviously Pete Carroll allowed this to happen. That's why he brought him in. But they ran an offense that stuck coach, and certainly in Russell's first, what was it, 3 years? I can't remember when Marshawn left, but certainly in the first 3 years or so with Russell there, the offense ran through Marshawn, and last year it essentially ran through Chris Carson. I mean, I think they ran the ball, and I know there's some of Russell's runs in this, but I think they ran the ball either first or second most attempts in the league last year. They were a running football team in terms of volume and in terms of structure with the quarterback under center.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to that. I don't want my quarterback throwing 42 times a game.
I don't think anybody does.
I want 28, and I want you to go 21-28. That's what I would want.
You know, it's hard to protect. I mean, you look at the way defensive players now have become so athletic. And look, offensive linemen, yes, have they become more athletic? But the reality is you could still make the argument, Colin, that the biggest mismatch in the NFL is pass rushers versus offensive linemen.
Athletically? There's no question.
So you do not want your offensive line to have to pass protect 45 times a game. Now, it's one thing on 1st and 10. Now, a lot of teams do a lot of things on first down or in normal down and distance situations with quick game stuff where the ball gets out. But you certainly don't want to ask your quarterback back to have 5- and 7-step drops too often because it's just too much of a burden on your pass protection.
All right, Greg Cosell coming back. We'll talk Baker. We'll talk Darnold. We'll talk Lamar. We'll talk Drew Brees, who I thought really looked old at the end of last year, which tells me Drew's not taking PEDs and he's aging naturally. That's why I can tell that he's on the up and up. That's coming up with Greg Cosell. Listen, it's the middle of the night. You're tossing, turning. You want a cool, comfortable night, especially in August and early September in most of the country. It's warm outside. That's where Casper comes in. Not only great 4 layers of pressure-relieving foam, but breathable foams designed to keep you cool all night. And what I love about Casper, they've got the duvets, the bedding, the bed frames. We have one of their dog beds and 6 beds. They ship it for free, and if you don't like it after 100 nights, they ship it out for free. It comes in a box so small, hard to believe there's a mattress in there. Sleep cool and comfortable. Casper.com, the code is HERD, H-E-R-D. That gets you $100 toward the purchase of select mattresses. Additional terms and conditions may apply. Breathable foams, perfect sleep environment. Get rid of your heat-trapping heavy mattress and get a Casper 100 nights risk-free. Casper.com, code HERD.